Hi, in this video, we are going to study about the difference between supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In machine learning, you might have studied about supervised learning, unsupervised learning, but in this course, we are going to study in detail about reinforcement learning. So, in order to understand more about reinforcement learning, first we are going to see what are the characteristics of supervised learning, what are the characteristics of unsupervised learning, and what are the characteristics of reinforcement learning, how they differ. That's what we are going to study here. What is supervised learning? Let us have a look at it. By definition, supervised learning means learning with the help of examples that are already labeled by an expert supervisor. There is a supervisor. The supervisor has already looked at the data and they have defined the label for the item. So you are learning how to do that. So that is what it is. For example, in a medical diagnostic system, the medical parameters such as blood pressure, sugar level, cholesterol, calcium level, potassium level, and so on. So many parameters. Some 30-40 parameters are measured. So they are the data for that particular entity. Based upon the values of these N data, the expert, the supervisor diagnoses that the person has the disease. So look at it. So there is one patient for whom there are N parameters, N data points, based upon which the expert says he is diagnosed positive. Whereas there is another data for which the same parameter values are given and the expert diagnoses that the patient is also having the disease, whereas there is one more data point. He is not diagnosed as positive, he is diagnosed as negative. Similarly, there are multiple data points. There are 10,000 data points available, 10,000 entities available. For each one, there are some 20-30 parameters given and also the label. The label tells you whether that entity is positive or negative. If the whole thing is given, by studying the data, one can learn how to detect for a new patient whether they are positive or negative. That is supervised learning. For example, how will the teacher teach the alphabets to the students? They show the alphabet A and they says this is A. So the supervisor picks up A and shows this is A, this is B, this is C. So when you write A and ask the baby, now she compares this with the original one which was taught, and it finds out that, oh, this is A, this is not A, this is K, this is B. So that is called supervised learning. In order to demonstrate what is supervised learning, let us look at the data. For example, there is a training data given. You look at the left side, 2 circle plus 5 equal to 1. What is a circle plus? Oh, we don't know. We have not been told what is a circle plus. We have not been told how to diagnose. We have not been told. But we are told that if the first reading is 2 and the second reading is 5, then the label is 1. The result is 1. Then if the first data is 17, second data is 13, oh, the result is 2. The label is 2. Now, will you look at the data? There are 5 data points given. We call them as training data. The training data will contain the data and the result. The result is called the target value or label. So the target value is given, the label is given together with the data. This is the question, this is the answer. This is the data, this is the target value. 2, 5, 1, 17, 13, 2, 3, 41, 2, 12, 20, 0, 8, 19, 1. So if you look at the training data, if you analyze, if you do some number crunching and look at all possible combinations, we have to find out what is the logic. We don't know the logic. By looking at it, if you are able to build the logic, that is called supervised learning. For example, in this case, the result is the number of odd numbers in the data. For the first one, there is only one odd number, so the result is 1. For the second row, 17, 13, 2 odd numbers, so the result is 2. For the third, 2 odd numbers, the result is 2. For the fourth, no odd number, so the result is 0. So the logic is created from the test data. That is called supervised learning. So that is why supervised learning is called generalization. So generalization learning, generalized learning, look at these things and then decide that, okay, this is my case. So that is called supervised learning. Another example, you are having a set of people and their salary. There is a person with 1 year experience with the salary 12,000, 8-year experience with the salary 26,000, 12-year experience with salary 34,000, 5 years experience with salary 20,000. So the salary depends upon the experience. Now, if there is another guy who comes with some 3-year experience, what is the salary that you will have to fix? Look at it. By looking at the data, we find that if X is the salary, it is multiplied by a number beta 1 and a constant beta 0 is added. So beta 0 is usually called the offset and beta 1 is called the multiplier. So Y equal to beta 0 plus beta 1x. So here in this example, we find that beta 0 is 10,000. For every 1 year experience, $2,000 is added. So 1 year, 10,000 plus 1 into 2,000. For 8 years, 10,000 plus 8 into 2,000. 12 years, 10,000 plus 12 into 2,000. 5 years, 10,000 plus 5 into 2,000. So that is how it is found. So the generalization, the concept of generalization is called supervised learning. Still, if you are trying to understand more, this is a mathematical form of defining what is supervised learning. So given n samples, x1 is a sample for which there are n medical parameters are given. Y1 tells whether the patient is diagnosed positive or negative. Similarly, another patient, X2 represents the 20-30 medical parameters of the second patient. Y2 is the label which tells you whether the patient is positively diagnosed or negatively diagnosed. Similarly, X1. So, X1 is a vector. X11, X12, X13, X1D. So, all the medical parameters of the first patient. X2, Y2, X3, Y3, Xn, Yn. So, if they are given, you will have to build a function, a generalized function y equal to f of x. So, you discover the hypothesis. So, that is called supervised learning. So, if you want to consolidate, what are the key characteristics? Label the data. So the input and output pairs are given. So the feedback is direct. The goal is to predict the outcome of a new data set. It is used for solving classification problem like image classification. From the image, you have to find out where is an eye, where is the nose, where is the mouth. So you can detect those things. Spam detection. So how to detect whether a particular email is a spam. Medical diagnosis. These are all some examples. So what are the key characteristics? Labeled data. Labeled data. It means for every entity, the data together with the answer, the label. So that is the key characteristic of supervised learning. Now, if there is a supervised learning, there has to be an unsupervised learning. What is that? So the unsupervised learning model has just unlabeled data, nothing. No label is there, simply the data are given. By analyzing the data, we can find out some hidden patterns in the data, hidden patterns and relationships within the data. For example, if you give a child some 100 toys, you need not tell which toy is what and so on. The child can figure out and classify them into several groups, several clusters. It's possible. So that is called unsupervised learning. In unsupervised learning, unlabeled data are used. Just data, no label is there. It is used for problems such as clustering. For example, among the customers, you can segment them. This customer always buys for more than 100 rupees. This customer always buys for more than 10,000 rupees. So you can classify those customers just from the transactions. So what is unsupervised learning? Let us recall. Unsupervised learning is about finding hidden structure in the collection of unlabeled data. So learning from unlabeled data. There is no label. Now let us come to reinforcement learning. So if you look at supervised learning and unsupervised learning, you are collecting data, collect. And you have some 10,000 entities from which data are collected. It is more like a batch processing. We have collected all the data and we are trying to learn from that bunch of data by doing some processing. So it is more like a batch processing. A batch of data are collected and you are trying to learn from them. Whereas reinforcement learning is to learn in an interactive environment. So as we work, you learn. So learning in an interactive environment by trial and error. You do this, you get a good feedback. You do this, you get a bad feedback. So trial and error. You get the feedback and you are learning from the feedback, from its own actions and experiences. That is called reinforcement learning. Not like unsupervised learning and supervised learning where a bunch of data are collected and then we start processing. Here, it is an interactive system. In the interactive environment, you learn and go, learn and proceed. And that is the difference between unsupervised learning, supervised learning, and reinforcement learning. In reinforcement learning, there is an agent like a computer program or a robot. So the agent is learning. What is the agent doing? It is selecting an action and does the action, and you get a reward, either a positive reward or a negative reward. Based upon that, you are tweaking which action must be chosen. Hereafter, if the punishment is very high, you don't go near that action. You choose a different one. That is the way we learn playing video games or playing chess and so on. So that is the way we learn. So what are the key characteristics? There is no predefined data. There is no predefined data collected. And the feedback is delayed. Only when you do the action, you get the feedback. So here the key components are: there is a learning agent, there is an interactive environment, there are certain possible actions from which you are choosing one of the actions and proceed. So the environment is in different states. The state changes based upon the action you do, and the rewards may be positive or negative rewards. So reinforcement learning is learning what to do, how to map situations to actions so as to maximize a numerical reward signal. So this is how we define reinforcement learning. Let us summarize now. We have supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Supervised learning is predominantly task driven. So we have a set of data collected and you analyze that, and for the next data you can find out what is the label. Whereas if in unsupervised learning you are having a set of raw data and you can learn from that, whereas reinforcement learning is more like learning from mistakes, learning from reward, and so on. So if you want to analyze, so for data type in supervised learning you have labeled data. For reinforcement learning there is nothing, unlabeled data, that's all. Only the feedback is given. Feedback type is direct for supervised learning, whereas indirect and delayed. So these are all some key differences between supervised learning, unsupervised learning, and reinforcement learning. Thank you very much.